Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Happy Monday. I hope you had an amazing weekend. So today I have your weekly dose of ghost stories and makeup here for you. If this is your first time joining me here, this is kind of a small little group where we basically do our makeup and tell ghost stories that my subscribers send in to me. This series is very much based on Bailey Sarian's Murder Mystery Makeup Monday, where she talks about a true crime story and does her makeup. So I thought I would mix the two things that I love, and that is makeup and horror and the paranormal, and create this series for you all. Okay, so today's theme is going to be, I was kind of inspired by, this sounds really like ridiculous. So I just started watching Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, I think it is. And I just got to the episode where that awful medium, what's her name, who has the series Medium based on her, was at this dinner party. She is just the worst human being in that episode. So that kind of gave me inspiration for today's video. I'm a psychic, and I traveled with like this, traveling circus fair, whatever. And like in the episode of Housewives, I spoke shit about someone's children, and the parents came back and killed me. So that is today's theme. I'm going to be using a new palette today. This is called the Book of Enchantment, the Spell Book Collection, and this is from Spellbound Beauty. Look at this. I bought this with my own money again, but I love sharing palettes like this with you because I kind of guess we're into the same thing if you're watching these videos. And yeah, there's a lot of purple inside. I'm going to try and stay clear of purple. I might add an accent here and there. And also, get this, there are 3 highlighters from this brand, and they come as little crystal balls. Ooh. So I thought Psychic fits in really, really well with that. So if you have any ghost stories, you can go ahead and send them here. Wait, what side would this be on? I always get the wrong side of the screen. It will be on the screen. Send them to this address. Please don't send them to me on Instagram because I don't read DMs. Don't send them to me on Twitter. If you leave them in the comments below, as much as I like to read them, I can't save them and read them out. So if you want me to read it out, or if you want to send your voice telling it to me, or you want to send a video of yourself if you feel comfortable doing that, send it to this email address. And it's always open. You don't have to ask me if I'm accepting ghost stories. I am always accepting ghost stories. So I get quite a lot of stories now. So it's come to a point where I actually can't read every single one. And I'm so thankful for everyone for sending in their stories. But please don't send in your stories twice, because I might read it and then 3 months later not realize that I've read it already and then read it again. Oh, I'm also going to be pairing up with this palette from Spoiled Lips. Again, one of my favorite. I thought Psychic, she's going to have like a Ouija board planchette, right? And I'm kind of looking at the greeny, you know what, fuck it, green and purple, let's do it. So our first story today is called The New Apartment. So it says, I love your channel and have been loving all the advice you give. Thank you so much. Thank you for helping me so much with fixing my makeup routine. Before I discovered your channel, I had way too many steps and products in my routine, and after taking an hour to do my makeup, I would end up looking cakey, greasy, and dry. Now, my skin is younger and healthier looking from taking your advice, and I'm improving every day. Oh. I just want to tell you, as a side note, how happy I am to have come across your channel. Thank you so much. I really, really, really appreciate that. Thank you. I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment with my best friend a few years back. The first night we got into the apartment, we noticed that our 2 animals, a dog and a cat, were acting strange. Throughout the night, we assumed it was due to them being in a new environment. But we noticed that they were randomly staring at something that we could not see. The dog was also growling at nothing and acting very strange. We eventually got so creeped out around midnight that we grabbed the dog and the cat and went back to our old apartment, which was empty, to sleep there since we had not yet turned in the keys. The next day we went back and decided to laugh at ourselves for being scared and try to forget about the whole thing. A few weeks later, a co-worker of mine wanted to get together and hang out outside work. We had never done so before, as I had only worked there for a few weeks. He came to the apartment that night, and we were all having some drinks and hanging out. After a few hours, he said very randomly to me, I need to tell you something that I have never told you before. And he proceeded to tell me that he is a medium and sensed a strong presence in our home. He said that the presence was a man and that he was watching over us, a nice presence in our house. This was not comforting to me. Nice presence or not, I was still creeped out. I still didn't know if I believed this or not and was skeptical. But throughout the night, my co-worker started to tell me, and my roommate, about lost loved ones of ours that were contacting him throughout the night. He said he felt an overwhelming amount of presences while he was in our home and tried not to bring up the subject but could no longer hold it back. That night took a very different turn, as he told us pieces of info about each loved one who had passed that would be no way he would have ever known. We all ended up crying that night as he told us different things our past loved ones were saying to him. He really turned both of us into believers that night. A couple of weeks later, my best friend had to move out and another girl moved in her place. I never mentioned to her about any weird paranormal things that had happened in the apartment because I would always try to rationalize the small instances, and I didn't think anyone would believe me. Very soon after, I was driving home from work and my new roommate called me and asked, "When will you be home? I'm scared." I asked her what was wrong. She said she saw a shadow, a strong, cold wisp of air fly past her, and felt a weird presence in the house and didn't want to be there. We ended up going to a mutual friend's house that night. When she met me at the friend's house, she seemed really shaken up and scared. A few nights later, her and I decided to sleep in my room together and watch movies. We had just started a movie, and out of nowhere, we both looked up and saw a man standing in the doorway of my room. I don't want to go on. I don't want to read. We both felt paralyzed and thought that a man had broken into our house. He stared at us for about 5 seconds or so and then slowly turned and walked into the bathroom. For a second, I couldn't move. I thought this was the end. I told my roommate to stay where she was and I slowly walked towards the bathroom. As I looked into the bathroom, there was no one there. Our shower was see-through with glass, so no shower curtain. There was nobody in our apartment. There was no door that he could have left out of. He would have had to walk out the same door he walked in. We both had the same description of the man we saw. Tall, button-up shirt, boots, and a beard. Our home was never the same after that. We both ended up trying our best to stay at friends' and family's houses. We avoided staying at our apartment for the rest of the lease from that night on. Luckily, we moved out shortly after, and I've never had an experience like that again. I ended up asking the property manager about if she ever had any weird experiences in that apartment. She was no longer managing the property and had moved to a new job. She told me that she always felt as if she was being watched the entire time she lived there, and would always see her dogs acting strange and growling at nothing. I later went on a date with a state trooper and told him about all the weird things that went on in my home. He proceeded to tell me that there was a middle-aged man, years and years back, who was found deceased in his home in that same apartment complex. Absolutely no thank you. Can you imagine just the fear of, seeing someone standing at your door but both of you seeing it together, like someone's broken into your home. It's also like, how do you explain to someone that you want to stay in their house because your house is haunted and you don't want to stay there anymore? Like, how do you explain that to people? It must be really difficult. Thank you so much for sending in that story. I'm sure that is an experience that will never leave you, and I hope you're recovered from it. Yeah. Whew. So we have our first audio of today, so let's go ahead.
Hi Robert, my name is Julianne. I am from Montreal, Canada, and I too am an MUA, and I love everything horror just like you, so we do have a lot in common, I guess. Anyways, I do want to share this story with you today. This is actually kind of a mix of true crime and paranormal. I've had a lot of paranormal stories in my life, but I feel like this one is the most shocking because it does involve true crime, which is like, we know something happened. Okay, so this was my childhood home. I lived there from like when I was a baby to maybe 10 years old. So yeah, really just like a small kid. I don't remember. I do remember a lot, but like, you know how much you remember from 1 to 10. So the house in front of us, they had our neighbors, they had a kid that lived with them. All their kids were grown up, but this one was mentally ill. We later found out that he was schizophrenic, so he still lived with his parents because he couldn't take care of himself. So he was kind of creepy. My dad had to call the cops a bunch of times because he would like stand in front of the house and scare like me and my brother. And he would just take long walks at night, and he would just stalk us from our windows, or like stop in front of the house and look at the house and stand still for like an hour. He was always wearing a black hoodie. Just a creepy guy, your friendly, creepy neighborhood guy. And so one day there was like cops on the street. All of a sudden there were ambulances. It was crazy. And so we found out that the guy killed both of his parents with, I don't remember, I think his mom a chainsaw and his dad an axe. He killed them both in their beds while they were sleeping, and he like dragged his mom throughout the whole house. Like, he made a mess. It was disgusting. And he then killed himself in the basement. I think he like hung himself, but before he hung himself, he like took, those kind of weapons that shoot bows. He kind of like, by hanging himself, shot one into... Anyways, I'm gonna spare details because it's really disgusting. And so, yeah, it was a big thing. Like, our whole street was closed for a week. There was an investigation. Well, I mean, there wasn't really an investigation because it was pretty clear that he had done it. And his brother actually found them dead in the house because he hadn't had news from them in like a week. So he just came to the house, and the poor guy found that. So our neighbors moved in, and one time she was speaking with my mom, and my mom was like, I guess you guys had like a pretty good price considering everything that happened. And she's like, what happened? And then my mom was like, oh God, am I really gonna be the one to break the news to you? She was like, I'm so sorry, but she was like, I think you should maybe go online and do some research about this. But there was a triple murder here. Well, I mean, double murder and suicide. And so, rightfully so, the neighbor freaked out, and she told my mom, like, wow, this explains so many things. She said that they had been hearing really weird noises, and she'd been seeing things. I don't think my mom told me everything because she wanted to spare me. But the house, they had like younger kids that were our age, and so we would go over to play there sometimes. And I swear to God, I've always been very like connected with energies, and like when I enter a house, I can tell if the energy is good or bad. And I just wanted, this house gave me literal panic attacks. Like, it wasn't good. And mind you, when I was that age, I didn't know what had happened in that house. My parents told me when I was a bit older. So I just felt it, and my parents knew, so they didn't want me to go there anymore. But my brother, actually, who was 4 years older, would babysit the kids there. And he still talks about it to this day as the most terrifying experience he's ever had. He said that the house would make really, really, really weird noises. And at night when the kids were asleep, he would always hear a chair falling down in the basement, kind of like when someone hangs themselves, they jump off of a chair or they let the chair fall. So he would always hear really weird things like that, and he saw things in like the hallway. Just, just not such a friendly house. And then they moved out not so long after that. I think they stayed for like 3 or 4 years maximum. They just couldn't do it anymore. And yeah, then they flipped the house. It went on a TV show. They had a whole creepy story about what happened in there, and I'd be curious to know how the new owners of the house are adjusting to the house, if they've had like any more experiences or whatever. So yeah, that's my story. I have a lot of stories myself, but I feel like that's a really creepy one just because of the double murder and the suicide. It's terrible, and we were so lucky that he didn't go on like a killing spree in the neighborhood, because it was a really, really small town. The cops were far away, and it could have happened. We probably left our doors unlocked. So, but yeah, that's my story. By the way, I'm sorry, I am French Canadian. I do have an accent, but that's it. I love you, and if you do feature me on your video, well, thank you so much, and have a great day.
Thank you so much. By the way, didn't even notice any kind of accent. Oh my god, what an insane story. It's heartbreaking and creepy. Imagine finding out, just in casual conversation at your house, that a situation like that happened in your home. Like, that is creepy stuff. How would you be comfortable living somewhere like that? I think we always talk about it. I know it's like some places it's the law to disclose if somebody's died in that house, and I know some places it isn't. I don't think I would be comfortable living somewhere like that. I especially feel like, as somebody who like believes in like ghosts and things like that, if you're to move into somewhere, a property like that, as someone who believes in this kind of stuff, I think you're kind of just asking for trouble, you know? Thank you so much for sending it in and sharing that story. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you. So next up we have, I think I'm reading. Am I reading? Yes. So next up, I'm going to read while I do my skin, and then we'll come back and finish up our eyes and add some more details. I haven't cleaned my makeup brushes in a very long time. I find it really difficult to do my makeup today with these brushes that are like my just in case brushes. Okay, so apart from this one, so this is called On Camera. Oh, this is very full coverage. So first, I want to say thank you. I love your Ghosts and Makeup Mondays. Thank you so much. Before my husband and I married, we lived together for about 6 months. I remember it was in January, and he had to go out of state to work for the first time since we had moved in together. I'm not the kind of person that is afraid to stay by myself, so I didn't give it much thought when he told me he'll be gone for a couple of days. The first few days went without incident. I'd received a new camera at Christmas, a few weeks earlier, so I spent most of my free time learning how to use it. One night, I was sitting in one of my living room chairs, watching TV. Keep in mind the house was fairly small, more like a freestanding townhouse. The stairs that went upstairs to the bedroom were directly by the front door, behind the chair. My husband's German Shepherd Annabelle was laying at my feet. Suddenly, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and instantly I felt like someone was behind me. Annabelle stood up, looking behind me, slightly wagging her tail. My camera was laying on the table beside me, and I know this sounds silly, but I was too frightened to turn around and look myself. So I held the camera over my head and took a picture. When I looked at the picture, the brightest orb I had ever seen was going up the stairs. It was so bright, it cast a shadow on the wall. I froze for a few seconds and turned around. Nothing there. Needless to say, Annabelle and I slept on the couch that night. The next night, as I was talking to my boyfriend, after a few minutes, he asked me the date and I told him January the 14th. He said, Yesterday was the 2nd-year anniversary of my mum's death. I didn't mention what happened, but in my mind I instantly knew who had come to visit the night before. That is so cute. Thank you so much for sending that story in. That's the kind of thing you see in a horror film, isn't it? They can feel something's behind them, but they don't want to look, so they get a camera. And they're breathing like this. And they take a picture. I blended my concealer. I'll be right with you. My first episode I did of this ghost story thing was just randomly came into my brain. Jesus fucking... I was reading a story, and I think the first line of the story was, "I'm a single mum." And I got loads of comments. Bear in mind, this is a story written by someone else. And I got loads of comments. And I made it clear. It was clear I was reading like ghost stories. I said it's other people's stories. They're not mine. And everyone was like, "Robert, I had no idea you were a single parent." Well, first of all, the story said I was a single mum. I'm definitely not a single mum. So, as is a new feature here on these Monday videos, you guys seem to like my older brother Marcus reading out the story the first time and the second time. So he is back with us in his, I don't know what to call this, his section. Marcus Corner. No, that's crap. Anyway, here he is.
Hi, Robert. Ghost Stories. This first one is called The Presence on the Road. Hi Robert, I love your videos and find them very helpful. Most of all, I like your personality and your voice. It's so soothing. So, unfortunately I'm reading this one, but here we go. Well, I have told this story a lot of times and it still gives me the chills. It didn't happen to me, it happened to my brother many years ago. He was 21 years old and I was 10. My brother had a girlfriend that lived in a small town near our city and he went to visit her very often. Around the month of October, there is a festival in another city that is near to ours. We live in the north of Mexico, by the way. My brother and his girlfriend went to this party as they like to drink and a dance, etc. But my brother didn't drink too much that night because he had to drive back to his girlfriend's town and then back to our city. He dropped off his girlfriend, went back to the road. Whilst he was driving, nature called, so he had to pull over to the side of the road in the middle of nowhere to take care of the situation. He got out of the car and went behind some bushes. We live in a very deserted area, so there's not a lot of vegetation where a person could hide. He was doing his thing when he felt the touch of a cold hand on his shoulder. He immediately turned round to see who was behind him, and there was no one. Not a living soul. So he ran as fast as he could, got into the car and drove like a daredevil, thinking, what has just happened to me? When he arrived back to our city, he ran into two of his friends. They waved at him and he pulled over to meet them. He was grateful to see someone and not be alone anymore. He got out of the car. They invited him to a party, but since it was already late, he wanted to go home and forget about what had happened. He said no, and his friends were like, "Come on, don't be like that. You can bring your friend too if you want." My brother's face turned white. He asked, "What friend?" They answered, "The one that's in the car with you." "I'm all alone," my brother said. Apparently somebody wanted a ride back to the city. Love from Mexico. That was a good one. Hola to you, and gracias for the story. This next story is called Possessed Cats. Hi Robert, you're such an amazing artist, and I adore this series so much. Thank you for being you. When I was a teenager, I worked at a roller skating rink that my boyfriend's family owned. There was a bad snowstorm one night, so his mother insisted I stay over until the roads cleared in the morning. She offered to make up the guest room, but I told her I'd rather sleep on the couch bed. She was a bit irritated because I had made it known that I hated that room. It was always cold and dark despite being on the side of the house that gets the most light. Just passing by that room made me feel sick and made my hair stand on end. They thought I was being ridiculous, but made up the couch bed anyway. We all went to sleep, and the next morning I woke up to their cat Angel, a big black and white fluff ball, purring against my hand that was hanging off the bed. She started to pull down on the sheets, so thinking she wanted to be petted, I ran my hand down her back and along her tail. I distinctly remember how soft her fur was and how warm she felt. I then rolled over onto my back and pulled the sheet back up around me, to which she pulled it down again. As I went to pull it back up, she jumped onto my chest and was scratching at my face, hissing at me. I remember clearly how heavy she was as she sat on my chest and how loud she was hissing. I began to scream, and as I sat up I pushed her with all my might onto the floor. I heard her thump onto the carpet. I was crying and clutching at my bloody wet face. Everybody came running asking what was wrong as I sobbed. I said Angel had attacked me and torn up my face. His dad finally convinced me to let him take my hands away and see the damage. He looked confused and told me my face was fine. I looked at my hands and there was no blood. I told them again what had happened, but his sister said, "Angel is on the porch." We looked over and she was sitting there behind the glass door staring at me. It gave me chills. They didn't even have a cat flap, so Angel couldn't have been in the house. I know something attacked me. I felt the fur, the warmth and the weight on my chest. There's a couple of stories for you for this ghost story. Get ready as a ghost by Robert on to me for Monday. I hope you enjoyed them. This is goodbye for now. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you, Marcus. Get ready with me as a ghost. That first story, first of all, what the fucking fuck? Just imagine someone being like, you think you're in your car all alone, your safe space, and someone's like, your friend sitting behind you can... I would die. And also, listen, now, I love all animals, but there's something extremely bitchy about cats. So, a possessed cat, however, now that is, I can imagine the extra bitchiness of a possessed cat. I would love to know what you all think about that one below. That is very strange. And the fact that I couldn't even really get into the house anyway, even if it wanted to. So I'm really excited to use this highlight. I'm just going to dip in. Ooh, cute, no? And what's next? Do I read? Sorry, I have like a new... Then I read. Okay. So I am going to read to you The Ghost from the Ditch. It says, "Hi, Robert. Hey. I am not into ghost stories normally, but somehow got addicted to your ghost stories and Makeup Mondays. Thank you, I appreciate that. When I was younger, I lived in a small town in eastern Oregon, and a house on the end of a road with an irrigation ditch resembling a large river backing the house. In the summer, this ditch was full with vast flowing water. My room in this house was on the ground floor, with the windows facing the large backyard with an irrigation ditch at the end. The top of my bed, where my head rested, was right by the window. One night, I woke up around midnight and didn't think much of it. I lied awake for a bit and then got that weird feeling you get when you know someone is staring at you. Oof. I turned to look out my window, and there was a man standing right at the window, staring in. He was soaked wet, as though he'd fallen into the ditch at the back. He was looking straight at me. Terrified, I ran upstairs to wake up my father, who ran downstairs to confront the man. He saw him walk around the front of the house, so at least I knew I wasn't crazy. But the man wouldn't respond to his yells. In fact, simply walked by as though nothing was the matter, or that he was soaking wet and walking on a cold night. My stepfather called the police, grabbed a flashlight and began to follow the man down the road. Shortly after he left our front yard, he simply disappeared. Neither the police nor my stepfather could find him after about an hour of searching in the dark. The police even came back the next morning to search in the daylight, but no trace of him was discovered, not even footprints, which was odd since it was cold and damp that night, and the soil where he walked was soft. It was as though he vanished into thin air. To this day, I'm still unsure whether I saw a ghost or a super creepy human. I'm honestly not sure which would be better or worse. I did, however, hang up curtains in my room the following day. I would brick that window up if I had seen that. I'd be like, this window's cursed and no one can look through it. It'll become like family legend. This highlighter, by the way, is incredible. I put quite a bit on because I want like a wet look, as I do with a lot of my looks for some reason. Yeah, I love that. Let me take a close look. Yes. Yes, everyone. That looks amazing. It looks really smooth. It's not like glittery or shimmery. You guys know how I feel about glitter and shimmer and highlighter. Hate it. This looks absolutely incredible. Very nice. My camera keeps focusing on something behind me and it never focuses on a candlestick. It's clearly a ghost. Okay, I'm just gonna whack on some lashes. Okay, everyone, this is our finished psychic who fucked up look. She was a bitch. She was a bitch, and she insulted everyone and their children and their husbands, and that's what happens when you insult. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. Well, that's it. Well, I hope you enjoyed the stories this week. I had a lot of fun today. I needed this nice video moment, nice making a video moment, whatever you want to say. Thank you for joining me. If you want to send me your paranormal stories, ghost stories, weird stories, just creepy people stories, then send them to this email address right here up on the screen. I'll also link it down below for you in the description box so you can just copy and paste it. I'll also leave a link to the products I use in this video in the description box below. I hope you have an amazing week ahead. I will see you on Wednesday and then Sunday and then Monday again for more ghost stories. Yeah, have an amazing week. I will see you very, very soon. Bye.